1. Sharply. In a sudden and noticeable way, the unemployment rate increased sharply due to economic instability. The cost of housing in urban areas rose sharply over the last decade. The number of international students enrolling in universities grew sharply after policy changes. 2. Steeply. Rising or falling at a high rate. The price of crude oil dropped steeply following global market fluctuations. Tourist numbers declined steeply after the introduction of stricter visa regulations. The demand for electric vehicles climbed steeply as sustainability efforts intensified. 3. Rapidly. Happening quickly or at a fast pace. The adoption of smartphone technology grew rapidly across developing nations. The number of online purchases increased rapidly due to convenient shopping platforms. Industrial output expanded rapidly after the implementation of automation. 4. Exponentially. Increasing more and more rapidly. Online subscriptions have surged exponentially with the rise of streaming services. The global population has grown exponentially in the last century, altering urban landscapes. Investments in artificial intelligence research have risen exponentially as demand for automation grows. 5. Suddenly. Occurring unexpectedly or without warning. Housing prices suddenly declined due to an unexpected recession. Internet traffic suddenly surged following the release of a viral video. The stock market suddenly plummeted after unexpected economic sanctions were announced. 6. Abruptly. Happening suddenly and unexpectedly, often in a harsh or severe manner. The company's stock value fell abruptly after reports of financial fraud emerged. International investments abruptly declined following the announcement of strict trade regulations. The number of gym memberships abruptly increased in January as people committed to New Year's resolutions. 7. Swiftly. Happening or moving very quickly. Ticket sales swiftly increased once the discounted prices were officially announced. Internet penetration swiftly grew across rural areas due to government subsidies. Crime rates swiftly declined after the introduction of stricter law enforcement measures. 8. Briskly. Quickly, energetically, and efficiently. Grocery prices briskly surged after supply chain disruptions intensified globally. The demand for renewable energy sources increased briskly in the past decade. Exports briskly expanded after the country signed several new trade agreements. 9. Markedly. In a way that is noticeably different or significant. Car ownership rates markedly declined as fuel prices reached an all-time high. The company's revenue markedly increased after diversifying its product range. Average life expectancy markedly improved following major healthcare advancements. 10. Dramatically. In a striking or extreme manner. Smartphone sales rose dramatically during the Black Friday promotional period. The car sales figures dropped dramatically during the global economic recession. Production rates dramatically improved once the factory upgraded its old machinery. 11. Gradually. Happening slowly over a period of time. The unemployment rate gradually declined throughout the first half of the decade. The number of tourists gradually increased after the marketing campaign was launched. Population growth gradually slowed down following government intervention policies. 12. Steadily. In a stable, continuous, or consistent manner. Employment rates steadily rose as economic recovery continued across the country. Energy consumption steadily declined due to the increased use of renewable resources. Hospital admissions steadily decreased as public health awareness campaigns spread. 13. Slowly, at a low or reduced speed, happening gradually. Agricultural output slowly increased due to improved farming techniques. The unemployment rate slowly declined after the economic downturn ended. Manufacturing costs slowly rose as raw material prices fluctuated unpredictably. 14. Consistently, in a regular and dependable way, without variation. The number of tourists visiting the city grew consistently over the years. Revenue from online sales increased consistently throughout the last quarter. Crime rates consistently dropped after new security measures were introduced. 15. Moderately, to a medium or reasonable extent. Sales of smartphones moderately increased between January and June of 2024. Interest rates moderately declined during the second quarter of the financial year. Student enrollment moderately increased at the university over the 5-year period. 16. Progressively, increasing or advancing step by step. The company's market share progressively expanded over the next 5 years. Tourist arrivals progressively grew following aggressive international promotions. Production efficiency progressively improved with the introduction of automation. 17. Slightly, by a small or minor amount. Production costs slightly fluctuated during the first half of the observed period. The population of the town slightly decreased due to outward migration trends. The unemployment rate slightly dropped between 2010 and 2012 in rural areas. 18. Marginally, just barely or to a small extent. The unemployment rate decreased marginally during the first quarter of 2025. Profits have increased marginally despite the challenging economic conditions. The average temperature marginally increased during the final months of the year. 19. Incrementally, gradually increasing or advancing in small steps. The company's market share incrementally grew as it expanded into international markets. The government incrementally raised taxes to fund essential infrastructure projects. The number of renewable energy installations incrementally increased as environmental policies strengthened. 20. Gently, with lightness, softness, or mild force. The average price of oil gently fluctuated during the period shown in the graph. The share price gently declined after peaking midway through the trading session. Tourist arrivals gently rose over the summer months, reflecting seasonal patterns. 21. Continuously, without stopping or remaining constant over time. Smartphone usage continuously grew from 2010 to 2020 among all age groups. The population in urban areas has continuously increased over the past decade. Water consumption continuously rose in urban centers as shown in the statistics. 22. Substantially, to a great or considerable extent. The number of tourists visiting the island increased substantially over 5 years. The city's population has grown substantially since the opening of the new airport. The company's profits increased substantially after launching the new product line. 23. Noticeably, in a way that is easily seen or observed. Public transportation usage noticeably declined due to higher ticket prices last year. University enrollment noticeably dropped after tuition fees were significantly raised. The demand for organic produce noticeably increased during the observed time period. 24. Significantly. In an important or meaningful way. Literacy rates significantly rose among rural populations in the last 2 decades. Unemployment rates decreased significantly after the government's new policies. The population density in major cities increased significantly in the last 5 years. 25. Minimally. To the smallest possible degree. The production cost minimally increased after the introduction of new materials. Mobile data usage minimally rose compared to the previous year's substantial growth. The unemployment rate minimally declined despite significant policy interventions. 26. Relatively. In comparison with something else. The number of tourists has increased relatively steadily over the past few years. The employment rate in the region has improved relatively quickly since last year. Unemployment rates have decreased relatively slowly compared to other countries. 27. Proportionately. In a way that maintains balance or relative amount. Healthcare spending increased proportionately with the aging population rates. Salaries increased proportionately with the rising cost of living over the decade. The number of Internet users grew proportionately with the global population rise. 28. Persistently. Continuing firmly despite challenges. House rental prices persistently increased in urban centers from 2005 to 2015. Traffic congestion persistently worsened despite the construction of new highways. Water consumption in urban areas has persistently risen due to population growth. 29. Unceasingly. Without stopping continuously. The demand for renewable energy unceasingly grew as awareness of climate change increased. Online shopping has unceasingly expanded, replacing traditional brick-and-mortar retail businesses. Technological advancements have unceasingly reshaped global industries over the past decade. 30. Negligibly. So small as to be unimportant. Industrial waste output negligibly decreased after the installation of new filters. The price of basic commodities negligibly increased despite significant inflation. Student enrollment numbers negligibly fluctuated during the 5-year study period. 31. Diminishingly. Becoming smaller or less over time. Public interest in landline phones diminishingly declined over the last 2 decades. The effectiveness of traditional advertising became diminishingly visible after 2010. Factory emissions reduced diminishingly despite installing modern filtration systems. 32. Perceptibly. In a way that can be noticed or observed. The rate of technological adoption perceptibly increased after the introduction of AI-driven automation. Healthcare standards perceptibly improved following government intervention. Global temperatures have perceptibly risen due to climate change. 33. Discernibly. In a way that is clearly recognizable or distinct. The economic disparity between regions has discernibly widened over the past decade. Market trends discernibly shifted after the government introduced new fiscal policies. Consumer preferences discernibly changed with the rise of digital shopping platforms. 34. Unpredictably. In an uncertain or unexpected manner. The stock market fluctuated unpredictably following geopolitical tensions. Weather patterns have changed unpredictably due to global warming. Oil prices unpredictably spiked as demand exceeded production levels. 35. Erratically, in an irregular, unstable, or inconsistent manner. Consumer spending behaved erratically throughout the recession period. The currency exchange rate moved erratically due to fluctuating inflation rates. The number of tourists visiting the region varied erratically depending on global travel restrictions. 36. Previously, at an earlier time or before now. Smartphone sales had previously surged before the market became saturated. Transportation was previously limited but increased significantly in recent years. Manufacturing industries were previously dominant, but service sectors grew more rapidly. 37. Subsequently, after something else or later in time. The population grew rapidly and subsequently plateaued over the next decade. Prices surged during winter, subsequently dropping sharply in early spring months. Demand climbed significantly, subsequently slowing as market saturation took hold. 38. Eventually, in the end, after some time, employment rates eventually declined despite initial gains during the early years. The demand for electric vehicles grew, eventually surpassing that of gasoline cars. The population in cities increased, eventually leading to infrastructure shortages. 39. Thereafter, from that time onward or after that, sales dropped sharply and remained thereafter relatively low for 2 years. Oil production peaked in 2015, thereafter experiencing a gradual yearly decline. Market shares improved briefly, thereafter experiencing another slight downturn. 40. Formally, in the past, previously, or once. Prices had formerly fluctuated dramatically during the early stages of development. This sector formerly witnessed consistent growth throughout the early decades. Exports formerly grew faster before international competition became too strong. 41. Lately, recently, in the past few days or weeks, property investments have lately risen despite global economic uncertainty. Lately, the national debt has increased due to substantial government spending. Traffic congestion has lately decreased after recent infrastructure improvements. 42. Currently, at the present moment or now, unemployment rates are currently dropping due to new job creation programs. Currently, the demand for renewable energy sources is higher than ever before. Currently, the job market is showing signs of recovery, especially in urban areas. 43. Recently, not long ago, in recent times, consumer spending has recently fallen after significant inflationary pressures. Recently, e-commerce transactions have increased significantly across all regions. Manufacturing activity has recently risen, fueled by stronger international demand. 44. Comparatively, in comparison with something else, the birth rate in Asia grew comparatively higher than in Europe after 2000. Employment rates rose comparatively faster in urban areas than in rural regions. Comparatively, profits showed stronger growth in 2023 than in previous years. 45. Similarly, in a like or comparable manner, both smartphone and laptop sales similarly experienced a steady upward trend. Similarly, the export volumes for both countries rose significantly over the decade. The number of students graduating has increased similarly across most universities. 46. Equally, to the same extent or degree. Both public and private sectors have equally contributed to economic growth. Equally, developed and developing countries have seen similar increases in energy use. Internet usage grew equally among teenagers and adults during the observed period. 47. Correspondingly, in a matching or related way, the cost of housing rose and the average income increased correspondingly. Urban migration increased and infrastructure development grew correspondingly. As the economy improved, employment rates grew correspondingly in many regions. 48. Proportionally, in proper ratio or relative amount, carbon emissions fell proportionally to the drop in industrial production rates. Proportionally, the rise in sales was aligned with increased marketing expenditure. The number of cars on the road increased proportionally to population growth. 49. Contrastingly, in a strikingly different way, online retail grew exponentially. Contrastingly, traditional stores saw declines. Urban areas saw population growth. Contrastingly, rural areas experienced a decline. House prices increased in major cities. Contrastingly, rural areas saw stagnation. 50. Conversely, in an opposite or reverse manner, rural areas experienced depopulation. Conversely, urban areas saw rapid growth. Sales in Europe increased. Conversely, sales in America witnessed a gradual decline. The number of students in higher education increased. Conversely, dropout rates fell. 51. Inversely, in the opposite order or direction, inflation rose inversely as national savings rates continued to decline. Demand for physical stores fell inversely as online shopping gained momentum. Unemployment rates inversely declined as the economy recovered after the crisis. 52. Analogously, in a comparable or similar way. Analogously, the rise in Internet users mirrored the growth in mobile devices. Increased research funding resulted in more scientific breakthroughs analogously. The decline in TV viewership analogously paralleled the rise of streaming platforms. 53. Constantly, happening all the time without stopping. The number of tourists visiting the island constantly increased throughout the year. The average temperature constantly rose during the summer months of each year. Student enrollment in science programs constantly increased over the last 5 years. 54. Stably, in a steady and unchanging manner. The population grew stably throughout the years without significant fluctuations. The company's revenue increased stably, reflecting consistent consumer demand. The demand for clean energy has risen stably, increasing investment in technology. 55. Uniformly, in an even and consistent way. Unemployment rates dropped uniformly, benefiting all sectors of the economy. Internet access uniformly expanded across rural and urban areas in the country. The company's profits increased uniformly with no major fluctuations observed. 56. Invariably, always happens the same way every time. Attendance at major festivals invariably increased regardless of weather conditions. Electricity consumption invariably grew during the winter months each passing year. Grocery prices invariably fell during harvest seasons in agricultural economies. 57. Statistically, based on data or numerical analysis. Statistically, the average household income rose steadily over the past 10 years. Statistically, smartphone ownership grew rapidly among young adults after 2015. Statistically, air pollution levels dropped in cities promoting green public transport. 58. Repeatedly, done again and again over time. The number of students enrolling in universities increased repeatedly over time. Train ticket prices increased repeatedly due to rising fuel and maintenance costs. The price of oil increased repeatedly throughout the years, showing a clear trend. 59. Specifically, in a detailed and exact manner. Attendance specifically dropped after the introduction of online learning modules. The birth rate specifically fell among urban populations during the surveyed period. Specifically, car ownership expanded dramatically in developing countries after 2015. 60. Notably, in a way that is remarkable or worthy of attention, exports to neighboring countries notably surged during the second fiscal quarter. Notably, the consumption of dairy products declined among younger age groups. Energy consumption increased notably during the summer months in urban areas. 61. Precisely, exactly, and without any doubt. The data shows that the temperature dropped precisely by 2 degrees Celsius over 5 years. The number of visitors increased precisely by 20% between January and March. The chart clearly indicates precisely how much the production costs have dropped. 62. Explicitly, clearly and directly expressed or stated. The statistics explicitly state the percentage increase in student enrollment. The chart explicitly identifies when the market started to experience a downturn. The data explicitly demonstrates a decrease in carbon emissions over the decade. 63. Strictly, in a controlled or exact manner. The statistics strictly highlight the fall in production rates during the recession. The population growth strictly adhered to the projected model over the decade. The sales figures strictly followed the seasonal trend observed in previous years. 64. Deliberately, done on purpose, intentionally planned. The population data was deliberately categorized to reflect regional differences. The price increase was deliberately timed to coincide with peak holiday shopping. The data indicates that prices were deliberately lowered to attract more customers. 65. Objectively, without bias, based on facts. The data objectively highlights the increase in average wages across the country. The report objectively measures the impact of the new policy on market behavior. Objectively, we can conclude that education levels have risen over the last decade. 66. Factually, according to facts and actual events. Factually, the unemployment rate decreased, reflecting an improving economy. The number of cars on the road has increased, factually speaking, over the years. The report factually shows that energy consumption has decreased over time. 67. Accurately, correctly, and without mistakes. The figures accurately forecast the population increase based on historical trends. The survey results accurately reflect the decrease in consumer confidence over time. The chart accurately depicts the drop in industrial output during the recession period. 68. Enormously. To a very large or immense degree. Consumer spending has increased enormously, reflecting a booming economy. The population of urban areas has increased enormously over the past decade. The number of digital subscriptions has expanded enormously in recent years. 69. Exceptionally. Unusually or remarkably in quality or degree. The average temperature rose exceptionally, leading to significant climate changes. Exports from the country grew exceptionally, setting new records in industry growth. Online education participation increased exceptionally due to the pandemic's impact. 70. Tremendously. Extremely large or intense in degree. The demand for online education increased tremendously during the pandemic. The number of tourists visiting the region has increased tremendously since 2000. Internet usage has expanded tremendously in developing countries in recent years. 71. Considerably. To a notable or significant extent. The amount of waste produced decreased considerably after new policies were introduced. Life expectancy has increased considerably due to improvements in healthcare. The number of people using mobile phones has risen considerably since 2010. 72. Intensely. With great force, energy, or concentration. Online shopping has become intensely popular, especially during peak seasons. The demand for organic products has grown intensely over the past decade. The rate of technological advancement has progressed intensely in recent years. 73. Immensely. To an extremely large or vast extent. Education standards have improved immensely due to new teaching techniques. The use of solar power has gained immensely in popularity worldwide. Global oil consumption has decreased immensely due to environmental concerns. 74. Profoundly. Significantly influencing something. The shift towards remote work has profoundly changed workplace dynamics. The increase in automation has profoundly impacted manufacturing industries. Education systems have been profoundly influenced by technological innovations. 75. Extraordinarily. Remarkably beyond ordinary limits. The popularity of plant-based diets has increased extraordinarily in recent years. The number of electric vehicles has risen extraordinarily over the last few years. Technological advancements have progressed extraordinarily over the past decade. 76. Intermittently. Occurring at irregular intervals, stopping and starting. Rainfall patterns changed intermittently, making agricultural planning more difficult. The country experienced power outages intermittently due to technical failures. Interest rates fluctuated intermittently, impacting financial markets. 77. Systematically. In an organized and methodical way. The government systematically introduced new policies to boost economic growth. Scientific research systematically improved healthcare treatments over decades. The company expanded systematically, ensuring steady and sustainable growth. 78. Cumulatively. Increasing steadily by adding over time. The economic impact of inflation cumulatively affected household savings. The number of Internet users cumulatively increased over the decade. Cumulatively, investments in renewable energy led to significant reductions in carbon emissions. 79. Irregularly. Occurring unevenly or inconsistently. Stock market prices changed irregularly due to external global factors. Employment rates fluctuated irregularly, making long-term planning difficult. Rainfall occurred irregularly, causing uncertainty for farmers. 80. Fluctuatingly. Changing frequently with variations. Oil prices moved fluctuatingly due to global supply and demand shifts. Consumer spending behaved fluctuatingly, influenced by seasonal trends. Housing prices reacted fluctuatingly to the economic downturn. 81. Oscillatingly. Moving back and forth between 2 points. Temperature levels varied oscillatingly throughout the seasons. The stock market moved oscillatingly, reflecting unstable global trade conditions. Interest rates shifted oscillatingly, creating uncertainty in investments. 82. Unwaveringly. Steadily and without hesitation. The government remained unwaveringly committed to economic reform policies. Consumer demand for technology products grew unwaveringly over the years. The company adhered unwaveringly to its sustainability goals despite financial challenges. 83. Uninterruptedly. Without stopping or being disturbed. The economy expanded uninterruptedly, maintaining consistent growth over a decade. Renewable energy usage increased uninterruptedly, reducing dependence on fossil fuels. Internet usage rose uninterruptedly as digital infrastructure improved. 84. Unrelentingly. Without weakening, stopping, or slowing down. Inflation rose unrelentingly, placing financial strain on low-income households. The demand for urban housing increased unrelentingly due to population growth. The impact of climate change worsened unrelentingly, affecting ecosystems worldwide. 85. Pronouncedly. In a way that is clearly noticeable or distinct. The decline in coal usage became pronouncedly visible after stricter environmental regulations were enforced. Global temperatures have pronouncedly risen due to the increasing effects of climate change. The demand for electric vehicles increased pronouncedly, surpassing gasoline car sales in major cities. 86. Radically. In a fundamental or extreme manner. The government radically restructured tax policies to support economic growth. Consumer habits changed radically as e-commerce platforms dominated the retail industry. The healthcare system has radically improved due to advances in medical technology. 87. Extensively. To a great degree or over a wide area. Renewable energy sources have been extensively adopted in many developed nations. Online learning has expanded extensively, benefiting students across various educational levels. Tourism has been promoted extensively through digital campaigns and international partnerships.